As a lawyer of over 25 years family law experience, I am a woman who believes that marriage is a protection for women and children. I strongly believe that all faiths should be equal under the law. And I assume all of you here think the same. And in 21st century Britain, you'd certainly like to think that the law felt the same. But no, we don't have that here. And why do I say that? It's because my work has shown me that over 80% of young Muslims, certainly under 30, are in unregistered nikahs. So they're nikah marriages, they're Islamically, everyone's happy, the family's happy that they're legally married, but they actually mean nothing. And that's a shocking statistic, isn't it? 4 out of 5, and growing. I would say that very few of you probably would disagree with that if you look back on your experience of marriages that you've attended in the last few years. If you were to ask them, they'd probably have their many, many reasons for not having legally registered the marriage. What does that mean? Well, it means how not to get married. That is the way not to get married. And I'll tell you why. And then how should you get married would be the good conclusion for all of you to go and spread the word. So, what is an Islamic marriage? Does anyone actually know what it is? We all think of it as a big party with the family and friends and everyone coming together in a very happy occasion and announcing in public that we're married. But we don't look at the essence of it. It's actually a contract between two people. It's not a sacrament or a religious ceremony. And you shouldn't let imams tell you that they have to actually conduct the marriage. There's no need for there to be an imam. We like there to be an imam because we like the comfort of having somebody who knows the Quran and Hadith to bless the marriage. But the actual essence is offer acceptance and being of sound mind and a mature age to be able to get married and to be free to be married. So, having said that, it's a very simple contract, but that's not what we're having. With the Islamic marriages that I'm seeing, clients constantly phoning to say, I discovered to my horror when my husband died or when the marriage broke up that you can't help me. No English judge is going to let me into the courtroom to give me justice. I've been made homeless. That's the main repercussion. Homelessness, destitution. The children are completely cast aside by a man who's moved on, often to another woman, very, very quickly, another family. That's the very essence that Islam was against. When it came in the age of Jahiliyyat, 1400 years ago, Islam said women cannot be used for their bodies and discarded. You have to take a woman in honorable marriage. It has to be enforceable, that contract, under the law of the country, so you can't just abandon her. It can't be a secret marriage. It has to be a public declaration. Everyone must know about the marriage. You cannot have multiple partners and unlimited polygamy as there was. And in those days, it was considered a great dishonor to stop men marrying multiple times because that's a status issue. But there was a limit, and we don't want to go into all the reasons why. You can ask your questions, but there was a limit on polygamy for a reason. And that was then. So now it seems really bizarre that women are voluntarily entering into marriages which lend themselves very easily to polygamy, to multiple relationships, to hidden relationships, and worse than that sometimes, when your husband's died and your mother-in-law says, you're never his wife, I'm not letting you bury him. That's a real case. You have to go to the coroner and fight for the body while it's in the fridge. That's absolutely bizarre that that's happening. You could be abroad in a Muslim country, as a client has been, and imprisoned for having no marriage certificate to show that you're married because you believe the oral ceremony was enough. And they threatened her with taking her child away from her after she gave birth. But a quick letter to the judge from me said, do you know, I know you think it's unbelievable what she's saying, that in the UK it's possible for her to have a marriage just orally, but it happens all the time. So these are, I'm just setting up for you the scenarios that happen all the time, but they're not all as dramatic as that. Many of you, if you can please tell your family and friends, will decide, oh, I don't really want to get married, I'm not ready to commit just yet to a legal marriage. That's the same as all of the community. Marriage is at an all-time low, we have to accept that. People want to test out the relationship. Muslims can't live together, so they feel they have to do a nikah in the eyes of God and the community. So that's another reason. It's a parallel with the rest of the community, living together, but just having a nikah. So you can see why it's happening, can't you? There's also complacency. Oh, we'll get round to that one day. Let's just do the big bash, make sure the napkins all match with the lighting and everything's gorgeous, and then we'll get round to the legal side. But often, the marriage doesn't last long enough for that. There's the very ominous trend that I've noticed in the last 5 and more years for the wealthier party, and it's generally the man, it can be the woman, who's refusing to get married until they test you out. So it could be, well, let's see how you are with my mum first and how everything goes, and if you behave well and maybe produce a boy, then we'll see if we can get married. It's happening with the Shia community, with the Mutta marriages. It's happening to African churches where there's a great culture of misogyny, the evangelical churches. So it's happening to Hasidic Jews who are hiding from the law as well. So you can see there's a strain of misogyny that goes through all of this. Why is it actually happening, do you think? Why is the law allowing it to happen? You'd think somebody would have woken up, wouldn't you, and said this is not acceptable, that these women are being dumped on the state or on their elderly parents, and this is not acceptable. Well, the law is still stuck in 1949, 70 years now, and that the simple law says, Marriage Act 1949, that there are only 3 faiths who have to get legally married and registered. So the Church of England, you cannot be married without registering, and Jews and Quakers, about 3,900, I mean there's not many, practicing Quakers, have to register their marriage. Because in 1949 there wasn't this mass migration, and the law hasn't kept up to date. So even when it's reformed to say a mosque can be registered to perform a marriage, and that reform has come in, the mosques decide, no, we will not register to perform marriages. And the ones who are authorized, their congregation is pressing them not to register the marriages. So with time, they're actually stopping their registrations. It's going backwards rather than forwards. So I want to move on to what I'm doing about it, which is a campaign called Register Our Marriage, which I urge you to look up and Google, and please join and spread the word. And that is saying, in a campaign of awareness around the country, that we must educate people at the age of 15 upwards, children, boys and girls, university students and upwards, to say your right is to have a marriage or a relationship that works, that protects you. And cohabitees have no rights in this country. That's the one lesson you must take out of here, that people think by living together they will have equal rights in a court of law. No, unless you've got a piece of paper registered in a country abroad under the law of that land, that's fine, it's a legal marriage, or a green piece of paper in the UK, which is a legal marriage. Otherwise, sadly, you should get legal advice quite quickly. So Register Our Marriage is a campaign that spreads awareness, but it's a two-pronged campaign. It's also pressing for a reform of the law, simple tweak to say, why 3 faiths? Either have no faiths, which is fine, be like France, where it's just a secular ceremony, and then you have your religious one on top if you want. Or all faiths should be treated the same. So I hope you'll join me in supporting that. And I wanted to ask you for more questions. I don't want to take up too much more time today talking about the legal side. It's very technical, very complex, but please do ask questions, because this is actually growing as we sit here in comfortable rooms talking about it. And that's why I had to start the campaign. Good news is the government's finally woken up. And under the integration strategy, they are now, after 5 years of struggle, supporting financially a small campaign of awareness in Bradford, Birmingham and Leicester to start with. If that proves successful, We will bid to take it nationwide. I'd like you to take the word out, certainly to those 3 areas first, but please contact me. You can come and get my card later as well. And just to say, we know some great people locally in Cardiff, in Luton, or wherever you're from, who would love to support you getting men as well as women and children protected in marriage.